So, we are talking about some interesting topics here that have to do with faith, the church, cultural, racial identity, freedom of speech, a lot of different things. Keith, if you could give us a little bit of background on what's happening, we can kind of dig into all these different pieces around it.
What we're going to talk about today is something that doesn't get enough coverage in people of color overall, and especially in the Asian community. And that is that racism is alive and well in churches. And when confronted with that, they have a really hard time dealing with it. And that's something that I've been going through for about the last year and a half. So in the context is my wife and I have been attending a church for 16 years since my daughter was 1 year old. And we've been in ministry, we've been teachers. And so what happened? We know that a few years ago, the George Floyd incident happened and Black Lives Matter happened. And our church happens to brand itself as a multicultural church. About 2/3 of the congregants are people of color, but at the same time, it's not one integrated service. We have a Mandarin service. We have a Telugu, which is an Indian language service. We have a Cantonese service. We have one of the most significant deaf services in America. We have a Filipino service, and then we have a main congregation. So no doubt, it's a diverse community. I happen to co-teach high school. So the church had a very, very strong response to the George Floyd incident, embracing the Black community. And our church actually has a very small Black community, so it's just great to see them do that. So about a year later, what happened to the Asian American community? We had the Atlanta shootings. And for those who remember the Atlanta shootings, there were 8 victims of senseless murder, and 6 of them happened to be women of color, Asians. And I was giving a lesson 1 or 2 weeks later to a high school group that I've been teaching for 6 years that happened to be 80% female and 80% people of color. And during my talk, integrating the story of the Atlanta shootings, the main leader tried to cut me off several times, saying that the discussion of the Atlanta shootings was inappropriate in a church setting and was irrelevant and shouldn't be brought up. And so my daughter's in this class as well. And we're doing it on Zoom. We're still in lockdown, so we're not meeting in person. And in the chat function of Zoom, the young women want to talk about it, and they want to expand on it and want to bring it up. So the meeting ended. A week later, I reached out to this other leader on Zoom. We had a discussion about what happened the week before. That individual said they understood, but as the leader of the organization, he said 2 things, and I actually wrote a Facebook post on it. He said, "I've always wondered why you're more loyal to China than the United States." Actually, I can't speak Chinese. I was born in the United States. I can understand Chinese dialects, but I'm not a fluent speaker of Chinese. And he said, as the leader of this organization, I never want you to teach on being Asian again. Said it with a straight face, said it without any thoughts. I'm really close to our senior pastor. I told him about this. He's like, you need to have grace on this individual. He struggles with this area and just move on. So this was like spring of 2021 now. So the night I talked to my pastor, I actually wrote a Facebook post about what just happened with no attribution, no gender, no ethnicity, just that a friend had questioned these things about my identity, which was shocking. We teach every year. We rotate the subjects on a cycle. So as I asked what the schedule was to the leadership team, this leader said I was fired. I was out. I had escalated to the pastoral team saying that this is not the correct way of terminating a volunteer. We met with another family pastor, and back to triggering for people of color, especially Asians. This is a conflict management exercise on trying to restore relationships. And he basically came in guns blazing, yelling at me for about an hour, pointing at me and standing over me, like full on screaming and yelling. And I just stayed silent, which is pretty much no point in engaging. And 2 weeks later, we did it again for 2.5 hours. And at the 2-hour mark, what he said was, now that you know how hurtful your Facebook post, I guess he read it, you know why I pushed you out. So he said sorry for that, but he never, ever apologized for any of his racist actions or beliefs. And we had come to an agreement that within 2 weeks, there would be just a very simple message to the students and the parents about why I was no longer teaching. And that never happened. In fact, a month went on, more months went on. The pastor of the church said that he needed to come clean or he would not be able to return to teach again. Never happened. And February came around And we escalated to the elder board, which there are people of color on the elder board, and they buried it. In the meantime, there was another leader who started sending me text messages about how my lessons to these high school students who are predominantly people of color and predominantly female were off topic, not relevant to the Bible, and that this individual blamed Asians for breaking the relationship with their middle child. When I escalated this to the elders in February of 2022, this past year, this same person and their spouse, who was a former elder of the church, sent a message to their best friends on the elder board, making some very strong allegations against me. Where we're at now is the elders think I've taken this way too seriously. The only interaction I've had with them is they've told me that I don't know what racism is, that these individuals don't hate Asians. That's their only definition of racism. I've sent them copious external writings, both from a biblical perspective, historical perspective. I've spoken to over 35 leaders all across the country, Black, brown, Asian, white theologians, professors of ethnic studies. I've spoken to the Attorney General's office of the state of California. All of these leaders have said I can't drop this because it's so important to the people of color community. I've actually become friends with a civil rights attorney who happens to be Taiwanese American, happens to be a Christian, who's been a civil rights attorney for 25 years. I know exactly what laws have been broken. I've actually told the church exactly what laws have been broken. I don't personally plan to take formal legal action, but they're not taking it seriously.
Wow. There's just so much to unpack with all of this.